All right, we are live. What's going on, everyone? It's Jeff from the Teach Better team. I've got our guest moderator from Mastery Chat tonight, the wonderful Janice Wyatt-Ross. Am I saying it's Wyatt-Ross, right?
Yes,
it is. Like that flow. I want to make sure I said it properly there. It's awesome to have you here. Excited to have you to lead in us in a very, very powerful Mastery Chat tonight. I said it last week because we had a great conversation, very deep conversation last week as well. That I love this. I love this Mastery Chat community because of the vulnerability. When we have these types of conversations, they just open up and they're like, "Judge me, I don't care. I'm trying to grow," and I just love that. That's just one of the things I love most about this. And the questions you had tonight were very deep, very thoughtful, and it really pulled that out. So I appreciate that. I know everyone in here as well does. So Ray's in here. Hi, Ray. Dave, good to see you, brother. As people are jumping in here, Nikki, good to see you. How are you feeling right now after the chat? Now, you told me a little bit exhausted, right?
Right.
How are you feeling? What's going on through your head right now?
Well, leading up to the chat, I was excited, and then as the day got closer and closer, well, what if nobody comes? And I kept looking at the questions. Well, that's a dumb question.
Oh, jeez.
Put all that in there. So.
You just judging yourself for being got there. Wow.
Yes, I did. And that's what I always do.
I think you were okay. I'm glad you stuck it out with us. People showed up. That's good. And I think people really, really enjoyed the challenge of reflection and everything that your questions brought. Hi, Kate, Elijah, good to see you. Patty, good to see you as well. So for those jumping in that maybe in the chat or maybe just some people just jump in just to catch the live video and stuff. Just so you know, I don't know if I even told you that we are streaming right now in our Facebook page, and our Facebook group, also in our ambassadors group, on our YouTube channel, on Periscope, Twitter, and on Twitch. So we're all over right now. We got you everywhere, Janice. So this is where you get judged. Like now you're all.
Oh no. Okay.
For those that might have been in the chat or watching right now that maybe weren't connected with you until tonight, can you give us a little backstory, like who you are, where you're at, what do you do in education, and if you want to go further back about how you kind of got to where you're at in education, that'd be okay too.
I don't know if we have that kind of time, but
anyway, the condensed version, the trailer version.
I'll try. I started off as a elementary special education resource teacher in Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay. And then I moved to Kentucky to work on my doctorate at the University of Cincinnati. I'm
from Ohio, so I get that. I understand that. A lot of other people are like, wait a minute, I'm like, that's because Cincinnati doesn't know what state it's in.
Right. So I did that right now. And well, let me say this. I've worked in all levels of education, elementary, middle school, high school, college professor, and 2 tours of duty, 2 separate universities. So I've done that, and a special ed consultant, did some consulting work. Right now, I'm the program director, which is a principal of a special program. We're a dropout prevention center. We work with students who are 16 years of age to about 20 that have either dropped out of school or on the verge of dropping out of high school, and we get them re-engaged, reconnected, and get them caught up with their credits, and we get them a job, and we work on their career. So that's in a nutshell. That's what I do.
And we were talking just briefly before we hit the button to go live, and I was talking about how one of the things since I've been in the world of education that really kind of smacked me in the face was the importance of that work, and actually how often how widely it is needed in so many different areas, and it kind of touches on some of the questions. But I think question number 1 about reflecting on your upbringing. And I come from a simple town there wasn't much poverty, there wasn't much crime, we all had pretty stable home lives. We didn't have a lot of struggles. So I didn't even realize when I was younger that was even a thing. I knew there were kids that struggled, and why didn't he end up going into to our junior year with us and stuff like that? But I never reflected. And then when we got in, we started meeting people that were in similar roles, and we've worked with schools that are similar to yours that have the same type of program, like realizing not just how often that is needed and where that is, but how important that is to try and you're saving those kids, and those young adults from whatever it is that led to that, trying to get them on the right path. And so I want to thank you for the work that you do. I think it's really, really important. and incredible at what you do there. So tonight, Mark, good to see you. Olivia, always good to see you. Mark says it was powerful chat tonight. He said it was awesome. Wow, those questions. And I do. And you were saying, oh, that's a dumb question. No, why'd you throw that in? You know, and I know one of the first things I noticed about your questions, they were longer. They were much longer than some. But as I'm reading, I'm like, yeah, but she needed to say what she was trying to say to get the question. So I get it. You know, the first one was like a two-parter, and but I get it. Like, but it was okay because I think because of what you were trying to say and what you're trying to get out of it made sense. So I want to go to the sort of the process of you thinking through the questions. I always ask, like asking our moderators, sort of what you were thinking when you were putting together the topic, but also the questions, and what were you hoping that people were going to either, I guess, take away from this, walk away from the chat with, and when you were structuring those questions, what was that? What was the goal in your mind?
The biggest thing is it was a starting point for me. This is just the initial conversation, reflecting on my upbringing. And like you said, you were not aware of students that were struggling, or you thought, you know, when I was growing up, I was from a small town in Hope, Arkansas. So very small town. And we all got along. Everybody was, you know, I didn't realize that there were, you know, one of my students went away during our senior year. Then she came back. I didn't realize until several years later when she had a son that we didn't know why she went away. But so the thinking of those questions, just reflecting on your upbringing. What conversations did you have with your family about people who were different, differences in race, differences in disabilities, just reflecting on what made you the person that you are today. So as I was going through that, and then just thinking of your life experiences, what made me a teacher today, reflecting on why was I a teacher, I had two neighbors who one had Down syndrome and one had cerebral palsy. They had made a big, huge impact on me, my life, and matter of fact, the whole community, our whole neighborhood, everybody is in some type of service industry, human service industry because of them. So just thinking as I was going through the questions, what makes you do what you do, think how you think. And then we look at what life experiences have you had that make you advocate for the things that you advocate and are passionate about now. So it's all about reflecting.
Yeah, and boy, we saw a lot of reflecting going on, which I said is one of the things that I love is just seeing that vulnerability. I'm sensing that this is a yes, but do you feel like generally based on the conversations that were happening, the answers that you were seeing off, do you feel like you accomplished that and the community today, our Master Chat family did that? They took that first step of really reflecting and getting in there?
Yeah, I think so. And it again, tonight was just planting the seed, which coincidentally, that is the theme of my school year for the staff and students this year. It's planting the seed. So
I like it.
A lot of people are now reflecting, well, why do I think that way? Well, why do I set this up that way? And I think from the comments, people were really reflecting on, well, what kind of conversations did I have with my family? What did we didn't talk about that. Well, why didn't we talk about that? So I think I did accomplish that. That is one I think I accomplished.
That was a big one. You know, the last 6, 7, 8 months, I've done just a lot of self-reflection. And one of the big questions that I've been asked myself is, and I still don't have necessarily the answer, is why did it take me so long to get to this point of reflecting on a lot of things. But even tonight with that first question, I went, what did we talk about? And I don't know if we talked about any of that stuff. I mean, we knew there was some. And I remember, you know, my mom always telling me that, you know, everyone's different and that's okay. But we never really talked about more of the appreciating the differences. It was more of a, you need to be polite to everyone. You need to be nice to everyone, not necessarily and that's not any fault of my mom. I'm not trying to dog her. Just, we never really got into that. And a lot of that I think is because I wasn't exposed to it as much either. You know, the type of the town I come from, it wasn't diverse. And it wasn't until later in my life, but yeah, that's that seems like such a simple type question, like just what did you guys talk about? But it's man, when you reflect back, especially when you're further away from your childhood, like we're all getting right, that it's just such a powerful thing. So were there any any specific answers, or maybe I always love the threads that get going when people start commenting on and stuff like that, and so you can just go down the rabbit hole. Were there anything like that stood out to you? And I don't expect you to recall the exact tweet and person's name and stuff, but anything or a theme that kind of went in that really like kind of popped off, it's either surprised you, shocked you, made you feel warm inside, anything like that you can recall right now?
I think what captured it for me was the number of posts or number of comments with people saying we never really talked about it. We never really talked about differences. We never talked about it at all. And I'm thinking, reflecting back on my own childhood, we always talked about it. Being my mother was a registered nurse at the hospital in my town, and she was the first Black registered nurse from 1965, 6 until the mid 80s. So we always talked about what that was like with her navigating that system. So looking at the comments where people said, we never talked about it, and I wonder why. Or people were saying, well, we never talked about it, but I talk about it now. So those are the types of threads that, I was following, going down those rabbit holes. Those I was following those and just looking at the other comments of people that had similar comments.
And a lot of it's, Nikki just kind of talked like that, everyone looked and behaved like me. And that's from me too, that this wasn't that. And I think why we probably didn't talk about it is because it didn't impact us.
Yes.
And I look at that now, and I still look at, we had this conversation last week with Hedrick, and it was just like the difference between your upbringing and my upbringing is that we could just say, oh, we're just not going to talk about it. And then it doesn't happen. Like, it's cool. Like, life's good. When you're in a situation where your mother's the first Black nurse at that hospital, like, that's a thing. Like, you don't get to just turn that off and stop thinking about it because we don't talk about it, right? Because it's impacting your life every day. And I think that's, as I've gotten older, I think all of us like that maybe that had the more like my upbringing of not talking about it are just realizing it, because we're starting to experience, because we're connecting with people, and and if we're open and we're willing to, and I feel like our Master Chat family is really good at this, we're trying to listen to life experiences that we didn't have, so that we can learn through that and do our best to try and understand it, so that we can understand why things are the way they are and why things need to continue to change and all this type of stuff. So I think that's just why these conversations I think are powerful and just important to continue to have. So really good. I just really enjoy that aspect of it. I just have the self-reflection going on every time I speak about it. And there's part of me that's like, you're doing good, you're growing. There's other part of me that's beating myself up, and it's just battle. But
nope, don't do that.
But I just love when we can have conversations about it and try to learn and grow, and do the best. That's why I love this family. So I would like to, one thing I always love doing is I like to kind of toss one of your own questions at you here live. Now, we all saw you answer it on the tweet. Okay. But you're not going to cheat and look at that tweet. I just want you live, and I just want you to go on it. So I got which one I want to pull out right now. So
okay.
I'm trying to see. So I'd actually really like to hear this one from you. So question 5 was, advocacy is a process that can be executed in different ways, which involve listening, research, and an action. Give an example of how failing to research an issue could hurt your credibility. And I'd love to know, like, if you've had those moments where you either failed to research or didn't, or maybe the other side where you on the receiving end of something wrong or incorrect because someone else failed to research, or wherever you want to take that.
Well, for me personally, I was in a situation where I was non-renewed in my job, and people made assumptions about why I was non-renewed instead of asking me. So asking me, what was going on, what went wrong. They just made an assumption. Well, they offered you another job. No, they didn't offer me another job. They did not. Well, I didn't realize that. Well, if I had known. So, and I often draw on that when you don't do the research and when you make assumptions. For example, looking at Chadwick Boseman, who is Black Panther, recently passed away. I watched an interview with a fellow actor of his last night, I believe, and he was saying when they were working on set, he was wondering why he thought Chadwick was a prima donna, that he had a masseuse on set, and after the scene, his girlfriend was holding his hand, massaging his hands, and he said, "Who is this dude? That Black Panther has gone to his head." And now that he passed away from cancer, the other actor just broke down on camera. He said, "I made that assumption. I made that judgment, and now I feel so bad." Yep. And I often refer back to, a long time ago when you had the activists that were getting behind people saying that, I was, I think the Tawana Brawley case in the mid 80s, late 80s, when I think the Reverend Al Sharpton got behind her and they were marching and protesting, and it turned out that she lied. She didn't tell the truth. So that hurts your credibility. Yep. So what Al Sharpton had to do, he had to go away and remake himself. He remade himself over from head to toe. Because you have to sometimes you have to listen, you have to do your research, or it will hurt your credibility. And when advocacy is about changing other people's minds, and when you change other people's minds, you have to convince them that what you are saying or the picture that you're presenting to them is what's needed. So if you're not credible,
it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work.
Yeah. That's Patty shared that was that picture going on in chat with that, where I remember that when people were assuming that he was on drugs and all these things going on, and that's a stereotype that gets placed both on I think on Black individuals too often, but also on Hollywood stars. It's a typical thing, right? The same with going to your head, and to find out, like, I didn't know all that stuff about it. I knew who he was. I knew who he acted. I wasn't a fan because I just didn't know him as, just like a lot of actors. But but reading about him recently, when I found out about what how he passed so young, and then that he shot that entire movie while going through so much, it's just like, wow. And then when you find out all the other stuff he's done while continuing to do that, and so I look at, like, my judgment on him, my assumption on him wasn't as bad as the actor, but my assumption was he was just another actor. I didn't even know that part, so I couldn't even and I look back, man, if I would have known that, maybe I would have appreciated his work more while we had him.
Right.
And I think he did a pretty nice job of and I think he wanted to hide it. He didn't want to use it because he didn't want. I think that is. I'm assuming here, but I'm pretty sure it's because he didn't want pity. He didn't want people to credit him for that. He wanted them to credit for his actual talent. So, and Patty says, we never know someone's story even when we think we do. And I think that's such a important thing. And I think when we talked last week a lot about, like, good research, versus just research, right? Yeah. Researching the things that going to the sites you like going to because they make you feel good doesn't necessarily mean it's the best research. And one thing I talk about that I've always done, but I've really been just more hyper focused on the fact that I do it, is when I see a post come through on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, whether it's a headline or whatever, if I agree with it really quickly, I have to spend time trying to prove it wrong. And if I disagree with it, like, just really violently, I try really hard to see if I can actually prove it right. And so I look to see, like, all right, am I agreeing with that right away because the title hits my bias just perfectly? Or is it actually true? Did they take his words out of context? And if they did, is it still bad, or is it just not as bad? And I think that's, when the picture that Patty was floating around, like, when that flies around, if you have that immediate assumption, if you go research and figure out where was that taken, what was the actual purpose, maybe avoid that. And I think there's so much that we can place that too. But unfortunately, I don't feel like a lot of people do that. I know a lot of my friends and family don't do that, unfortunately. But I try really hard. What I actually found is I actually post and share things way less now than I ever did before. Because I'm like, no, unless I am 100% certain and behind this, I'm not. If I have any doubt about what it's saying, or I don't feel it's presenting the actual, like, straight truth, then no, I don't want to share it, even if I have confirmed that necessarily what we.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the article might say some truth, but the headline is just that, the catchy one. And I get it, but I don't.
I had to learn the hard way, and that probably bruised my credibility a little bit, but I have to do my research.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to. So, I guess I don't want to keep all night because it is late. I appreciate you being with us here. I wanted to see maybe if we can leave everyone that's watching, and a lot of people come back and watch us later and stuff. And so if you could kind of leave us all with, we had this chat. It was sort of that first touch, that planting the seed. I like how you use that. If you could leave us any kind of parting words or like maybe a call to action, whatever you might want to call that for us to kind of take away now, what would you share with us? If you had one more question maybe to put up there, right? Or one more answer to put up there tonight,
okay,
where would you go with it right now?
It's what I ask myself and what I ask the teachers at the end of every year. What have you done this year to advocate on behalf of someone else? What are you going to do this year to advocate on behalf of someone else?
Ooh. Well, there you go. Master Chat family, we can keep the hashtag going tonight. That's your last question. What have you done or what are you going to do to advocate for someone else? I love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me a little bit extra tonight. I'm looking at who we have next week. Where are we at? What is today? Next week we got Caitlin O'Connor leading us. And we're talking about beyond listening, acting toward anti-racism at school. Ooh, that's going to be, we're going to continue this powerful conversations going on. So make sure you join us next week, same time, same place, 8:00 Eastern time over on Twitter. We'll be here live again afterwards, recapping as well. Everyone who's in the chat right now, thank you for chiming in. Thanks for being in there. One thing that I love doing is going back to the hashtag feed right now and following up on things because you miss so much when you're in there. So I encourage you all to go do that. And if you're not following Janice yet, which after the chat, I can't believe you wouldn't be. But if you're not, make sure you connect with her and continue doing that. I appreciate you leading us tonight and for hanging out with me and just chatting with us tonight. So appreciate you. Appreciate all of you. Everyone have a fantastic rest of your night. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you for